The first time I saw Nicholas Vale, he didn't look like the kind of man who needed help from anyone. He had that stillness about him, the kind that fills a room before he even speaks. The kind that makes silence feel louder than words. I was 26, working as a part-time archivist at a private library in the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. My job was to organize and digitize rare manuscripts for wealthy clients. Nicholas Vale was one of them, a billionaire philanthropist known for his precision, mystery, and aversion to human connection. The request had come through a formal email. Confidential archival organization, duration 3 months, residence-based work, discretion required. The address led to a mansion outside the city, secluded behind iron gates and lined with towering oaks, the kind of place that looked beautiful in daylight and haunted at night. When he opened the door himself, I was startled. No butler, no assistant. Just him tall, sharply dressed, and looking like he'd been carved from solitude itself. "You're punctual," he said simply. His voice was calm, deep, but hollow in a way that made me want to listen closer. "Thank you, Mr. Vale," I replied, clutching my folder. "I brought the references you asked for." He waved a hand slightly. "That won't be necessary. Come in." Inside, the mansion felt less like a home and more like a museum, immaculate, sterile, but somehow aching for life. No photos, no personal items, just books, art, and silence. "The library is this way," he said, his footsteps echoing through the marble hall. "You'll have full access to everything here except the East Wing. It's off limits." I nodded, trying not to stare at the locked double doors at the end of the corridor. He turned to me with an unreadable look. "You'll find everything you need in the West Study. I value quiet work and privacy above all else." "Understood?" "Yes, sir." And with that, he was gone like a shadow, retreating from light. Days passed quietly. He rarely spoke unless necessary, but sometimes I'd catch him standing by the window in the late afternoon light, staring out at the forest as if he were waiting for something or someone to return. He'd asked me to catalog hundreds of letters, financial papers, and personal correspondences, but they were all strangely empty of intimacy. No names repeated. No handwriting that suggested closeness. It was like his life had been carefully scrubbed of anyone who'd ever mattered. Until the day I found the box. It was a dull brown container tucked behind a shelf in the corner of the library, dusty, unmarked, and far older than the rest. When I lifted the lid, the first thing I noticed was the faint scent of old cedar and paper. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Most were landscapes, some were of the mansion during construction, but one stopped me cold. A photograph of Nicholas Vale, 10 years younger, smiling, his arm around a young woman with soft auburn hair and eyes filled with light. She was holding a little boy, maybe 5 years old, same blue eyes, same dimpled smile. The caption on the back, written in delicate script, read, "Home, August 14th. My heart quickened. Nicholas Vale wasn't supposed to have a family. Every article, every profile, every whisper said the same thing. Orphaned young, self-made, no spouse, no children. And yet, here was proof a family he'd never spoken of. That evening, when I returned the box to its shelf, I found him standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes flicked toward to the space where the box had been. "Find what you were looking for?" he asked quietly. I froze. "I was just organizing the files you left." He stepped closer, his tone still calm but sharper now. You touched something that wasn't meant to be touched. I swallowed hard. I didn't mean, but then his expression softened, just slightly. No one ever does. He walked past me, picked up the photograph, and stared at it for a long moment. The light from the window caught the edge of his face, revealing something I hadn't seen before. Pain. She and the boy, they're gone, he said finally. His voice cracked just barely. That's all you need to know. I wanted to ask how. I wanted to say I was sorry, but something in his eyes told me not to, so I nodded quietly. Tomorrow, he said, setting the photo down. You'll start cataloging the basement archives. There's nothing personal there. And he left. But that night, I couldn't sleep. The mansion felt different now, heavier. As I lay awake, the wind outside seemed to carry whispers through the long corridors. I thought about his words. They're gone. Gone how? The next morning, when I entered the West study, Nicholas wasn't there. His coffee cup sat cold on the desk, papers scattered across the surface. But one item stood out, an open envelope, its contents half pulled out. Inside was another photograph, the same woman, the same child. But this time there was another man in the background blurred, watching them. And on the back of the photo, another note. You can't hide the truth forever. A chill ran through me. Who had sent this? Before I could think, I heard footsteps behind me. Nicholas. He looked at the photo, then at me. His face hardened. Where did you find that? It was on your desk, I stammered. I didn't mean to. He snatched it from my hand, eyes dark. No one's supposed to see this. Then, softer, almost to himself, not again. He turned away, running a hand through his hair, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Not anger, fear. Whatever secret Nicholas Vale was hiding, it wasn't about money or business or pride. It was about someone. Someone he'd lost. Or perhaps someone he was still trying to protect. And somehow I had just stepped right into the middle of it. I didn't see Nicholas for 2 days after that morning. The mansion was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. His study door stayed closed, and his car never left the driveway. By the third night, the silence had become unbearable. I went to the library just to feel less alone. That's when I noticed the box again, the one with the photos sitting in the center of the desk. No dust this time. Almost as if he'd been waiting for me to come back. Next to it was a note. If you want the truth, meet me in the East Wing. The East Wing, the one he'd told me never to enter. My hands trembled as I turned the old brass knob. The air inside was colder, untouched for years. Covered furniture, old portraits, a faint scent of lilies gone stale. And then I saw it, an entire wall of framed photographs. The woman, the child, Nicholas, smiling, laughing, living. He was standing in the middle of the room, his back to me, staring at the largest portrait, a family picture taken on a summer day. She was my wife, he said quietly. Clara, and the boy, that was my son, Daniel. I didn't speak. I couldn't. They died 5 years ago, a car accident, or at least that's what I was told. He turned, his eyes shadowed with a grief that had never found rest. But a year ago, I received that photograph you found with the man in the background. It wasn't an accident, Emily. It was planned. The air left my lungs. By who? I whispered. He took a breath that seemed to shake his entire frame. Someone from my company. Someone who wanted me out of the way. They didn't get me, but they got them. Tears stung my eyes as he reached for the box and lifted the final photograph, a picture of his son. older, standing in front of a school building. Dated 2 years after the accident. I hired you because I needed help finding the rest of the files, he said softly. But I never told you what I was really looking for. Proof that Daniel might still be alive. The world tilted. Alive? He nodded. Every lead goes cold. Every witness disappears, but I can't stop. If he's out there, I have to find him. Silence stretched between us, like glass fragile and full of everything we couldn't say. Then, almost without thinking, I placed my hand over his. You don't have to search alone anymore. He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, the hardness in his eyes melted. There was grief, yes, but also gratitude. When dawn broke through the tall windows, the light fell across the photo wall soft, golden, forgiving. He stood beside me, no longer a man haunted by ghosts, but a father daring to hope again. And in that stillness, I realized something I hadn't before. The mansion hadn't been silent all these years. It had been waiting. Waiting for him to open the door. Waiting for someone to listen. Waiting for the truth to finally come home.